Next speaker is Guilhem, and he's speaking about InterIMAP, the case for local IMAP servers and fast bidirectional synchronization. Thank you very much, Guilhem.
Thanks. Yeah, so today I would like to talk about mail. So now I know that like everyone has their own mail workflow, and they tend to be very opinionated about it, and so am I. So I don't want this talk to be to become like a flame war or something. But I found a bit of things in my quest for mail workflow, and I would like to share it with you. So there are a bunch of ways you can access your mail storage. So the simplest way, of course, is to use Webmail through your favorite web browser. It's super easy. You have nothing to install beside the web browser itself. And the configuration is often handled by the Webmail provider, so you don't need to, it's shared across all your devices. So super easy. On the other hand, latency can be a problem if you have a slow internet connection, of course, and the offline access is also a problem, so you cannot access it from your, if you don't have an internet connection. So, well, people who want to have like slightly improve their email workflow productivity tend to use a local IMAP client instead, like Thunderbird or MUD or something like this. So a pro here is that the configuration and environment can be, like it's more flexible. You can fine-tune it for your needs. And also, if you have like a work account and a personal account, you can use the same client for both of them. That's kind of convenient. On the other hand, latency is still a problem, at least unless the client has some kind of fancy caching mechanism in place. And again, the offline access is still a problem. Okay, so personally, I want offline access to my mails. And I also want the mail to be on the drive itself for the offline access and also for reducing the latency. So a common solution for that, which is quite popular, is to use IMAP to mail desynchronization, something like offline IMAP, and where you, like every single mail on the remote IMAP server is synchronized locally on the mail dir storage, and you can point your mail client to this mail dir storage. Well, it provides offline access, of course, because the mails are on the drive. The latency is pretty fast. That's great. On the other hand, unfortunately, it does not scale, really, and it kind of strains the network in a fairly bad way. So one thing I should say is that if I'm going to synchronize my mails, I want to do it quite often, so that when you send me an email and it's being delivered to my my mail provider, I want to be able to almost immediately access it from my computer. Like I want to do it often, and between the syncs, I normally don't get, if I'm going to sync every couple of minutes, I normally don't get 1,000 mails between those few minutes. So ideally, the synchronization should be quite fast and quite smooth, but it's really not the case with offline IMAP, sadly. And this is like a simple benchmark. I have like less than 100 mailboxes, about 700K, and they are all in sync. So like it's really a dry run. There is nothing to do and nothing to download, just checking. Well, yet there is over 35 megs of IMAP traffic. If you are lucky enough to have IMAP server that has support for compression, you can break that down to about 5 megs. But yeah, well, even 5 megs together with a running time of over 1 minute, that's not something I can afford if I'm on a slow connection, like in a train or something like this. And so, okay, why does it scale? So one thing we observe is that when we open a mailbox, like in a mail dir format, the first thing it traverses this directory to like see if there are any new like files, because the mails are stored as individual files. And this tends to be pretty slow. And the solution I would like to propose here is to install a local IMAP server, like Dovecot, between the mail client and the mail storage, and let that IMAP server manage the cache. So you never access the mail storage, mail dir, or whatever directly. You only do it through the IMAP lens. So in fact, I have a DovCot installation on my laptop here at DebConf, and well, one could argue that this is a bit overkill to have IMAP installation on like single-user laptop. But I would say that Debian by default comes with an MTA in null mailer mode, and it's really no different than that. And I would also say that this kind of like abstracting the mail storage over really fits the Unix philosophy, because you like the only job of the mail client becomes to render the mails. Everything else, like the search, the caching logic, the sorting, the threading, whatever, is done by the IMAP server, and the writing mail is done by your favorite editor, and sending the mail is done by SendMail or via SMTP or something. So actually, a neat thing is that, well, okay, I have DovCot installed. I don't even need to have the DovCot process. On the other hand, is not even installed, is not even running. So I use Unix permissions and Unix domain sockets to connect between the storage and between the mail client and the IMAP server, but it's completely isolated from the network. So there is nothing bound to add any or anything like this, not even to the loopback interface. Anyway, so in the picture, what I would like to suggest is to move from the left-hand side into the right-hand side. So in the left-hand side, you have like two mail clients, your like Mud, Thunderbird, whatever, and then the status bar that reads the number of unread mails, and they are both reading what you have in your mail storage, and then you have some synchronization solution like offline IMAP to the remote IMAP server. And what I would like to move to into like teaching the IMAP protocol for the status bar and the mail client, and then use bidirectional IMAP synchronization instead of maildir to IMAP synchronization there. And the mail storage itself is abstracted over, and you don't access it directly, you only see it through the IMAP lens. So a quick benchmark with Mud. So this is a test benchmark, like 50K mails, mailbox about 200 megs. And I try to open the mailbox and do some searches, first with maildir, and maildir with a header cache on, and then with IMAP. So there is a bit of overhead. So the second lookup is a lot faster than the first one because thanks to caching, so caching either by Mud or by DovCot. DovCot is slightly slower, except for the search by message ID, I guess because Mud does not index that. Well, I would say the overhead is still okay, and I mean, Mud is not really the most clever IMAP client there is, so when you open the mailbox, if you have 50K mails on that mailbox, it's going to download all the headers for all the mails in that mailbox, while of course you only need what's going to be shown on screen. So it could have a lot more clever logic, and if you are using the IMAP protocol via netcat or anything, you can have like much faster lookup. So there is some room for improvement there. The overhead is still okay, I would say. And if you have a smaller mailbox, it becomes really negligible. On the other hand, the IMAP protocol is really not quite optimized for bidirectional synchronization. So the only way, like the only pure IMAP way of having bidirectional synchronization is, okay, you select the two mailboxes and you list all the mails together with the flags locally, remotely. You compare them and then you think if there is any difference. So it's very slow, and this is not. It does not solve the network access issue that I showed before. And fortunately for us, there is this very neat extension there is an RFC published in 2014 called Quick Mailbox Resynchronization. And essentially what this does is that each mailbox is associated with ever-increasing 63 bits mode sequence that increases whenever you have like whenever you have changes. So like a new mail, flag updates, deletion, whatever. And the highest mod sequence of a mailbox is given upon select, and it's available at constant time. So that means this is really cool because that means to see if your mailbox has any change at all, instead of downloading the flags and the unique identifier of all your mails, it's one thing, and it's given in constant time. It becomes linear in the number of mailboxes, and instead of being linear in the number of mails. And of course, you have way more mails than you have mailboxes. And this is where InterIMAP enters the picture. So InterIMAP is the solution that, at least it's my solution, like this offline IMAP replacement for servers that do support query sync. And the benchmark is really quite spectacular. So again, like less than 100 mailboxes, 700K mails. The running time is brought from over 1 minute to under 1 second. And remember, the remote IMAP traffic, the received there was 35 megs. Now it's brought to about 10K. And if you compress that, you can divide that by 4 again. And in fact, it's so fast that I mean, now, unlike the previous metrics, the TCP and SSL overhead, as well as the authentication, becomes quite significant. Because, well, you're going to connect to the remote IMAP server, so you're going to have the TCP3 handshake and then SSL handshake, and then you're going to authenticate to the IMAP server. Well, that's pretty slow. And also for compression, of course, if you like the more data you have, the more the deflate algorithm will be clever because it can reuse the previous dictionary it had. So it makes a lot of sense to have like a daemon mode. And so this does work. So you can like this watch dash watch equal 5. It means like you poll the server every 5 seconds, which maybe is overkill, I don't know. But so every 5 seconds you query the server and say, do you have any change? Do you have any change? And so on. But you keep the connection open. So there is no overhead anymore for the TCP and SSL overhead, and the authentication also. And the deflate compression dictionary can be shared across all the calls. So I synchronize every 5 seconds. I kill the process after 5 hours to measure the network traffic. And, well, it was less than one off synchronization with offline IMAP. So I received about 20K, 25, a bit less than 30 megabytes, which compresses very well. And the reason why it compresses very well is because well, like all these access are the same. It's like every 5 seconds, do you have any change? Do you have any change? And it's most of the time the same response, so it compresses very well. So overall, like in 5 hours, I had I had less than 1 meg of network traffic, which is quite great if you are in a slow connection in a train or something. And we can even do better with some other extension called IMAP Notify. It's a bit like idling for multiple mailboxes. Unfortunately, I found that the DovCut implementation of this extension is a bit buggy, so the InterIMAP implementation is also a bit clunky. Anyway, it has a bunch of, well, I'm just throwing some feature here. It has support for INET sockets, and also you can use, if you don't want to use SSL for transport, you want to use SSH or something like this. This also works via pipes or unnamed socket pairs. It has, as I said, support for the IMAP compress extension, which is really great for daemon modes, and a bunch of other extensions I'm going to have to go through. One thing which is a bit anecdotal is the native SOX5 support. So you don't need, if you want to access your mail via Tor, you don't need this LD preload hack. And also it can be used to synchronize multiple mailboxes, multiple accounts, like your work account and your personal account, onto 2 different namespaces on the same local IMAP server that you can read using the very same mod. It's licensed under the GPL3, and now for the maybe not so shiny things, there is no easy way to migrate. If you have an existing maildir to IMAP pair, you cannot migrate that easily to InterIMAP. You need to re-download everything because InterIMAP needs to know to have this unique identifier association, so it keeps track of it in its database. And if you, it needs to recreate the database. So to populate the database, you need to wipe one end and resynchronize everything. It's a one-off things. It should be fine. It's still mostly a personal project at this point, so it doesn't have the momentum and the community that offline IMAP and so on have. And I would also say it's mostly a plea for the, maybe the Debian maintainer for IMAP servers, is that the dovecot config is a bit overkill. So for an MTA, you have a DebConf template, a DebConf dialog that asks you if you want a null-mailer-like or MX-like and so on. And I think it would be cool to have something like that for IMAP, for dovecot, where you have, because I want dovecot on my laptop, but it's the configuration that comes by default is way too overkill for the laptop. And it's in Debian since Buster, apt install InterIMAP, and can have some man page and some documentation in this URL. And with that said, that's all I had to say.
Thank you, Guilhem. Any questions?
Since you are an upstream, right?
Yes.
Of this software, just wanted to say, I think you are aware of JMAP, which is a JSON replacement for IMAP with lots of better design, basically.
Yes.
It would be really cool if you, at some point when it stabilizes, if you had the support for that one, so that you could actually proxy old clients not supporting, most clients are not supporting JMAP yet, so that you could proxy them basically through this thing and also synchronize things locally. That it would be able to talk to JMAP like Fastmail or whatever supported now.
Yeah, so you could use, so it's not supported right now. I follow quite closely the IMAP working group at the IATF, and it's, I don't see any blocker for that. It has not happened yet, but it's mostly a matter of changing parser, really. And then, you could have your local dovecot installation, and then this synchronization would happen with then your dovecot synchronization would act as some kind of caching proxy, so to say, except that it's a perfect mirror of your local storage, of the remote storage, but you mostly use it as a caching proxy to benefit from the features that are not available remotely or vice versa. So yeah, that's a, I hadn't thought about this use case, but that sounds perfectly valid to me.
Any more questions?
So I'm not really an IMAP expert, but something people are always asking me is how do I sync my not much state between machines? And that basically has some extra metadata. And I don't know how well that fits into various IMAP extensions, but tags basically on messages is people's main concern.
Tags?
Yeah.
But there is no tags in IMAP, there are only keywords.
That's my point, yes.
No, hang on, there are only keywords. But the keywords in an arbitrary string, it doesn't start with a backslash. So it's, you can have anything there. And this is attached to a single mail, and you also have some extension called metadata, where you can attach some data to a mailbox.
Right. Keywords are implementation dependent, right? I guess maybe
no, not at all. They are part of RFC 3301.
Okay.
Some mail clients like Thunderbird, they don't support arbitrary keywords.
Yes.
So then you have a local map from your string, like work, whatever, friends, something, to some predefined keywords like A, B, C, D, F, G, or I don't know how they're called. But this is, that's Thunderbird's fault, really. It's part of the RFC that has been published in 2002, so that's very old, and I don't know whether Thunderbird does that, but there is no excuse for them to do that.
Okay, really. So this is a bug in the clients which don't support arbitrary keywords. Yes. Okay.
So keywords are perfectly fine there.
Okay, so that was my question. You support syncing keywords.
Yes.
And so maybe some enthusiastic person could glue not much support in there. It basically would need, which I think would be an interesting thing anyway, would be a not much supporting backend for example, for DevConf. I mean, I don't have the
For-
spoons to do it myself. But
Yeah, so if I think that would be awesome to have something like this. Yes, it shouldn't be specific to DovCon, of course. It should be
well-
IMAP, but that would be great. Yes, yeah.
Any more? We're out of time. Thank you very much, Guilhem.